Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is day 3. If you can see under my eyes, you can tell that it's day 3. Um, but it's just been wonderful. Thank you all for joining us. In a minute, I'll introduce our all-star lineup today, continuing the high quality of people that are presenting, minus myself. This is the first annual No Place Like Home conference. We have been trying for a number of years to do this, and we were trying to do it in person at a venue because it's really nice to get together and make those connections. And I think that's wonderful. It didn't work this year. I don't know why. For sure, there was something going on. And so we're doing it remotely. And so we'll put this together again next year. We'll have our second annual. The idea that we had in pulling this together was to get some subject matter experts together to try to provide some quality information, because when you do get that online, you're not sure usually how to sift through all that. And so we've got our local subject matter experts to help us kind of sort all that out. We hear from so many clients or prospective clients that they want to age in place. They want to stay in their home. And while we get it, and we want to help them to do that, we want to make sure that they understand what it takes to do that. And what we find is most people don't. They don't understand the logistics. They don't understand the costs. They don't understand the cost in human terms as far as the people around them. So it can be done. We're not opposed to that. It can be done. But we want to make sure that people are safe and have a high quality of life. And then if there is going to be a transition, which there typically is, that we're able to make that transition and do it and still be good, still be well, still be healthy. So that's really what we're trying to do, get people motivated to think through all this stuff, get information, and yeah, make a plan. So I'm Mark White from Idaho State Planning. That's what we do. We like to help people plan. And so that was the purpose of this. So hopefully we get you a little nudge to go, okay, that's what I want to do. And here are the people I need to talk to so that I can get my ducks in a row. Thank you to our sponsors. We've got Blue Cross of Idaho, Home Care Assistance, Aldo Cabrini. Thank you, Aldo. Adelante Financial Group. We visited with Justin Walker yesterday. Give his crew a call. And Dee Childers at Life Changes Elder Care Consulting. She was with us yesterday. We had a great conversation. Now, somewhere either up above or down below, there's a little line, and in it there's a couple of icons that you can click. One is the chat icon. Use the chat icon if you have a recommendation, a suggestion, but also look in there because there are materials that you can download and then have that available to you. You can also, there's one for questions and answers. There's that one you can click on, and we'll see those and then try to incorporate those into the presentation or flat out ask those questions, especially if it fits within what we're doing. We have a Facebook group. You can go to that and get additional answers and materials and sponsor and presenter interactions. We're going to have a Facebook Live with Family Care Navigator. So you want to join that. That link will be in the chat box as well. Okay, Carly, did I get everybody?
Yep.
Did I get everything? All right, you can't make this happen without a good team, and my good team consists, of course, everybody here at Idaho Estate Planning that I can step away from some of the day-to-day stuff and do this. Carly Ward has really worked hard to pull this together. And Jen C. Simpkins is our marketing director, and she's worked hard to pull this together. She also happens to be my daughter. More importantly, one of the parents of my grandchildren. And so that's really important stuff. Actually, to be honest with you, yesterday, our youngest granddaughter was watching me do this. And as she's watching, she's 2.5, and she goes, "Grandpa's silly." It's the only feedback I've gotten so far, and I don't quite know how to take that. All right, let's talk about Family Resource Home Care. There's the team is with us. We've got Jeff and Ashley and Tony. Jeff is a nationally recognized thought leader. That would be so awesome to be a thought leader in the home care business. He's been doing this for quite a while, 10 years with Family Home Care. He is the local subject matter expert that has traveled the farthest. He's come, well, hasn't come. He's calling us from Spokane. That's so far away. And then is now the president and CEO. And boy, he's been busy with them as they've expanded and moved on. His team here in Boise, Jeff, is this right? Our team here is Ashley and Tony. Thank you for being with us. And then they can give you a little bit more, and they will talk a little bit more about themselves. We also happen to have Kimberly Clark. Kimberly is the executive director of the Edgewood Springcreek Ustick. It's a great community that she has there, and I've met quite a few of her team. She's pulled together just a fabulous team. She's kind of like me. We don't know for sure that we're good at anything, but we have a good team, and that helps immensely. All right, so Jeff, do you want to start? Do you have a little presentation? You guys are going to talk a little bit, and then Kimberly will cue up your presentation, and then we'll talk. We'll have a conversation. Jeff, take it away.
Thank you. Actually, it'll be Ashley that starts us out this morning, and we're going to walk you through some of the scenarios that they've put together because they're really fantastic scenarios, and then to guide you on some of the decisions that you'd be facing if you were facing a similar scenario, and it'll kind of help you think through what it is to age in place and what are the options when maybe you can't age in place at home.
Hi guys, so like Mark said, I am the local branch. I'm the regional business development manager here in the Boise area. We serve the whole Treasure Valley from Payette to Mountain Home is our range. A little bit about Family Resource Home Care. We've been in the Valley since 1986. Like Mark said, we do have 8 locations throughout Washington and Idaho. So we are a relatively large home care company. We do provide a wide range of services, including personal care services, dementia care, Alzheimer's care. What we really try to focus on too is the respite and companionship. Like Mark said, we really want loved ones to be loved ones. And during those times when people are, uncertain of what's going on, we like to step in and be able to assist with those so that they are able to just be the wife, be the daughter, be the husband that they need to be. And so while we understand each client and patient has different pain points, we do try to address those head on. Tony is our branch manager here, and he does a one-on-one assessment with each client before signing them on to really figure out what is your pain point? What can we do to help serve you? And then we come up with a specific care plan so that way all needs and wants are met prior to us even starting with you guys. Something that we really do find helps families, if you are looking for us to take over some tasks such as bathing, dressing, toileting, that really helps the family while they may feel overwhelmed. And we're going to go into some of these scenarios where we can help step in a little bit more and let us be the caregiver and let them be the family member. We can even do some like grocery shopping, driving them to their appointments, light housekeeping. And then if patients are being discharged from the hospital or they're on home health, we're able to fit into some of those scenarios where they may not be there the whole time. So that's a little bit about us. And then I think Jeff's going to go ahead and go into some of the scenarios.
Yeah, so one of the things that is unique about what it is that we do in elder services is we all understand that there is no 2 scenarios that are exactly the same. I learned this really well myself about 10 years ago when my identical twin boys were born. You would think that being completely identical, that they'd be the same. But you know what? From day one, we noticed that were so unique differences in their personalities, right? And so, and here I was witnessing these little guys that have grown up now, and they couldn't be more different from a personality standpoint. So different that we have to parent them differently. And that came to me as a bit of a shock when I thought, hey, I've got two for the price of 18 here. It's I got my identical twin boys. This is going to be easy, but it hasn't been so easy. And what makes it so difficult is the fact that they have their individual needs, they have their individual wants, desires, passions, and pursuits that they each have. And so we've learned as parents that that each of our 5 children need have their own unique way of approaching the world. And so I think that it's a good lesson for all of us within the senior services space to understand that if a family, a single family living under the same roof, can each have such unique differences, then it should come as no surprise that when we're dealing with seniors who are aging and who have their own unique um, passions and histories and desires and joys and sorrows and memories and such, that we need to approach those from a very unique standpoint. Mark and his team has put together some really good scenarios. They're case studies that can help us to better understand how we in the industry think about a unique situation, a unique family, and what's going on in their world. And they've gotten to some really great details. So if you haven't done it already, if you go into the chat, you'll find that they have posted all of the conference materials. And within those conference materials, they have some scenarios. And these scenarios really paint a really strong picture for how we can navigate through. But understand that everyone is unique, everyone is different, and how we would approach finding solutions and answering questions to your unique situation or to the situation of those in your life and your families need to be addressed in a unique way. We can't always say, oh, well, so-and-so has CHF, so this is what we're going to do. Or so-and-so has early onset dementia, so this is what we're going to do. Everybody has a unique story. So we're going to start out with one of those stories with Michael and Deborah. If you have your materials in front of you, just a quick reminder about Michael and Deborah. They've been married for quite some time. These are folks that family is very, very important to them. They've got a local daughter who lives there in the Treasure Valley. And that daughter's super busy with grandchildren, one of which is special needs. So she's got her own issues. But Deborah and Michael obviously very much care about their family because they love spending time with their grandkids. They've got 7 of them. They're very active. But there's some health issues going on. Deborah has recently suffered a stroke that's left her with some partial paralysis and some aphasia. You got Michael, who's needing a knee replacement, and so he's not getting around as well. They live at home, but their home has a basement, and the laundry room is located in the basement. And there's unfortunately no real way for Michael to steady himself. So daughters are in the home and seeing this situation, and they're getting worried. They're getting really nervous about whether or not they're going to be able to stay at home. These guys have been happily married for 40 years. They're still fairly vibrant. And so the question is, what are their options? Well, statistically speaking, 90% of us want to be able to age in our own home. And that's a desire that most of us can empathize with. But I'll say that there's another statistic that 78% of us our greatest fear, more than fearing death, we fear being a burden on our families. And so here Deborah has suffered from a stroke, and Michael is starting to slow down, and one of their greatest fears is going to be being a burden upon their family, because they're going to be highly sensitive to the fact that their daughter, who lives right in the same community, everyone else is out of state, their one daughter who lives in this community has got a life of her own and special needs children, and it would be tough on her to try to continue to provide some supports for this family. Now, a couple of things that I'd like you to be aware of. So within this scenario, Michael is a veteran from the Vietnam War. And there's a little known benefit from the VA that is called the aid and attendance benefit. And aid and attendance is a basically long-term care insurance, kind of like that, for our vets. And it can provide up to $1,300 per month of assistance for Michael and Deborah. And even if Michael were to pass away, these benefits can transition directly to Deborah, even though she's not a vet. As a spouse of a vet, she could benefit from the aid and attendance benefit. And so there's some resources that can be made available, especially to families who may not have the personal financial resources to pay for long-term care, or maybe they don't have long-term care insurance, or maybe they haven't done that spend down to where Medicaid will start picking up the cost of long-term care, which is a lot. That represents the preponderance of all of our seniors out there in our community. Is not quite at the top end of the scale, but not at the bottom end either. We call that kind of the donut hole. And there are some resources that are a little known and a little understood associated with being able to finance long-term care. Now, $1,300, if you feel like that doesn't say a lot, I'll tell you that in the Treasure Valley, the average home care recipient are spending just over $1,000 a month on home care. So with the aid and attendance benefit, that could potentially, for the vast majority of those who need assistance, that could offset the entire cost. But there's a couple of other nuanced factors here. So Michael is in the need of a knee replacement. So if he were to go in and receive that orthopedic treatment, he's going to come out of the hospital, most likely go to a rehab facility. That's leaving Deborah alone. That's going to be a tough situation because Michael's doing a lot as a caregiver for Deborah. So there may be some need for some respite care associated with Deborah. That can start to become costly if it goes to all day long. For example, that could get to, say, $250 a day of expense. And so planning for that and making sure that families are aware of that is an important factor when they're trying to consider, hey, how do we get dad back up and running with maybe a new knee? Some pre-planning on what is going to happen with mom during that time might be something to consider.
Hey, Jeff,
Yeah,
Jeff,
shoot.
can I step in here for just a second?
You bet.
I see Kimberly is nodding. I just wanted to point out that one of the options for the respite care is to visit with someone like Kimberly, because that's a situation, Kimberly, you can tell us more about it, but it doesn't have to be forever in there. It can be a respite situation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. True. Yep.
Kimberly, what would that look like?
So we have a lot of families that in these type of situations can come to us for respite anywhere from 5 days on up to 3 months. It doesn't have to be a long-term care situation. And basically that care starts off at approximately $150 a day for a level 1 and kind of going up from there. But it's all inclusive. So that includes their apartment, that includes cares all the way up to all their needs, which could be just, supervision because of memory deficits, or it could be up to transferring, bathing, quality, all the things that are included in full cares.
So this is a situation in supplementing what Jeff and team can do, and I need to point this out because I'm one of those kids and in this situation, it allows us to not worry about mom. Okay.
Exactly.
We can take some worry off the plate. We're going to have worries with dad for a while anyway. And this allows us to take some of that off of our plate. And that's huge. Thank you. Sorry, Jeff.
No. I love that. I love that you point that out, because there are so many ways to be able to fit the pieces of the puzzle together, that the key, if you walked away from this conference with anything, it would be to understand that there are great professionals all around you in the community that can help you make good decisions that are going to be unique and are going to be specific to your family, to your family's needs, and to what your desires are. And planning, which is what Mark is all about, planning ahead of time can be so beneficial, because then you become much more aware. And in fact, the fact that you're even attending a conference like this actually already indicates that you're investing into your own understanding and your own ability to plan for the future. So kudos to you for participating today. A couple of things that I'd also like to point out, a couple more options, because what we don't have within these scenarios is a complete understanding or picture of the finances of the family. Now, sometimes families looking at the financial aspect, they need to be very conservative. And so maybe staying at home is not going to be feasible if they start to require round the clock care, because that's very expensive. So an assisted living facility, an adult family home, those can be a lot better options for the finance portion. But in this case, let's just assume for a moment that there are some financial resources. I got a couple of options that I'd like to make sure that folks are aware of. So Michael and Deborah being so active with their family, wanting to spend time with their kids, but yet needing some additional assistance and help from a caregiver to be able to get from here to there, to transfer from here to there, especially for Deborah because of her deficit. And then we want to keep dad out of the basement where that laundry room is. We want to do all the laundry for him. Supplementing with hourly care can, like I mentioned, be fairly inexpensive on a monthly basis. But as that continues to grow, we can even do something as like live-in care. This is something that is available in our community, where a caregiver will literally live 24/7 in the home. And in this case, they've got a bonus room in the basement. So they've got a great setup for that. It, however, can be fairly expensive. Live-in care in our community is about $9,000 a month, but that is 24/7 care. So if finances are not an issue, and that is a desire to be able to stay at home, that is an option to do live-in care, because that is so much less expensive than hourly care. Actually, that's even less expensive than, say, 12 hours a day of hourly care. And we can do that because the room and board is part of that overall compensation package for a caregiver. The second thing that I want to make sure that folks are aware of from a financial lens is that there is also a way to be able to finance care, long-term care in the home, through a reverse mortgage. In this particular scenario, we know that they've lived in this home for a very long time. And though it's not necessarily updated, there's definitely going to be some value here. And given that we've got an 80 and a 77-year-old, they will likely not outlive the value of this home. And they can tap that through, there's various vendors that specialize in long-term care loans that are where, instead of making a mortgage payment into the bank is actually making a mortgage payment, if you will, out of the home to fund healthcare expenses. And that's one way that to be able to defray or offset some of the costs associated. And you can do that in conjunction with other benefits like the aid and attendance benefit or other long-term care insurance, whatever the needs may be, if there's some equity in that home. So as you can tell, each scenario is going to be unique and different depending upon what the desires are, depending upon what the healthcare needs are, and depending upon what the financial situation is. And consulting with someone about your unique situation is one of the best ways to be able to understand your options and then be able to make choices. And knowing that, like Mark said at the beginning, that you can transition from one resource to another depending upon what your ultimate needs are, because as he pointed out, aging, we tend to degrade in our ability over time. We tend to get sicker over time. And our goal is ultimately to try to keep the quality of life as alive as possible. And even if we can't add more life to your more days to your life, we want to add more life to your days. And that is definitely possible with just a little help from professionals like ourselves.
Very good. Jeff, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to come back to you. We have more questions, so don't go away. Kimberly, why don't you jump in and give us an introduction, and then we'll start trying to marry these two together a little bit more, because we haven't heard from Tony yet, so we need to do that before we get off. Thanks, Tony.
Absolutely. So my name is Kimberly Clark. I have been in the healthcare industry for over 30 years. And I started off as being home care manager, then went to skilled nursing facility, and now I'm in assisted living. I opened the building at Springcreek, Ustick in 2011. I have absolutely loved assisted living, and I think that has been my calling all along. I just didn't know that until I got a little bit older. So what I would like to do is I would like to show you a video that just kind of introduces Edgewood Healthcare, and then I'll explain a little bit more about how that really looks as far as, you know, what we can do for people. So Carly, if you want to go ahead.
She's getting it loaded. Here we
Awesome.
go. Here we go.
This is Ruby. She just celebrated her 84th birthday. Things are changing for Ruby, and her kids are worried about her. She agrees it no longer makes sense for her to live alone. Ruby's daughter, Chrissy, helps her look into her options, and together they find a new home for Ruby, Edgewood Healthcare. As soon as she moves in, Ruby meets the in-home provider, Emily. She's a nurse practitioner who works right in the community and knows all the residents. If Ruby has a question about her prescriptions or if she becomes ill or needs urgent care, Emily's right there. Of course, Ruby will still have her primary care physician, Dr. Hansen, and Emily will work with him to make sure all Ruby's healthcare needs are met. In fact, Emily looks over Ruby's prescriptions and has a suggestion for some small changes that might help. She communicates with Dr. Hansen to make some adjustments to Ruby's medications. "You're taking good care of me already," Ruby says. "It's not just me," Emily says, and explains that there's a whole team of caregivers at Edgewood ready to help Ruby. They call it the Edgewood Health Network, and it's made up of physical, occupational, and speech therapists, home health and hospice professionals, nurses, and many other specialty providers to help with whatever Ruby might need. In a short time, Ruby makes plenty of new friends, and she sees the Edgewood Health Network in action. When Ruby gets the flu, Emily comes to check on her. Emily's always right there when Ruby needs her, and she doesn't even have to leave the comfort of her own home. Plus, Chrissy appreciates the convenience of not needing to take time off work to take her mom to the clinic. Ruby's new friend Martha meets regularly with the on-site physical therapist, who helps Martha get strong enough to walk without a walker. Ruby's friend Tom learns that he's facing a life-limiting illness. Although Ruby is sad about the news, she's thankful that the in-home hospice caregivers are here to help him. Tom never has to leave his home, which means that Ruby, Martha, and his other friends are still right down the hall and can visit him frequently. When Ruby needs shoulder surgery, she comes home from the hospital quickly, where Emily's right there to check on her. Working together with on-site home health, nursing, and therapy services, Emily monitors Ruby's progress. It's comforting to Ruby to know she has a specialized team of healthcare professionals right in her own home that will see her through her recovery and beyond. At Edgewood, home and healthcare come together. Now, Ruby's been at Edgewood for over 5 years. Today is her 90th birthday. Chrissy, Martha, Emily, and all Ruby's new friends are here to help her celebrate. Ruby's decision to make her home at Edgewood was a good one. When she blows out her candles, Chrissy asks what she wished for. Ruby can only think of one thing: "I wish I would have moved to Edgewood sooner." Ruby's story is one of ease, comfort, and care. Trust Edgewood to shape your healthcare story today and into the future. Edgewood, where home and healthcare meet.
Okay, so basically, you know, as far as assisted living goes, we can assist with just medication assistance all the way up to end of life care. We do PT, OT, speech therapy, and of course have additional services for Coumadin checks, additional nurses. Most of our Edgewood communities do have 2 nurses in-house. We have a nurse practitioner that's able to come in and see our residents as needed. They come in once a week. They can also do urgent care appointments, so they can keep their primary care physician, or they can change over to the nurse practitioner as their primary. We do hospice services, of course, in-house, and then outpatient therapy as well, which focuses more on pain management and more in-depth therapies within the home. So some of the things that I think that it's difficult for families and things that they need to watch for is medication forgetfulness, multiple phone calls that they're making to family is signs that they're needing help, obviously. Their eating habits, socialization has declined, and then of course falls. You know, falls are happening in the home, and that's a really good indicator that you have some trouble there and need to look at that. Just basic confusion. It could be environmental hazards. They're leaving the stove on, or they're burning the toast when they make it, or neighbors and close friends are, you know, saying something to you when you come to visit mom or dad, and they're saying, oh my gosh, they've been over 5 times just yesterday because they don't know how to work the remote, or, you know, she got locked out of the house, or whatever the case may be. So then the decision has to be made as far as whether we're going to do, you know, home care in the home, or if they need to go to assisted living. And being from home care, it's a great option. Absolutely. I think that the cost factor, as Jeff said, is the biggest concern, because, you know, you can come into assisted living at a level 1 at $35.50 for a cost-effective apartment, on up to level 3, which would be $42.50. Or you can have a 1-bedroom, you know, and that starts off approximately $4,400 and can go up to $5,600 if they need full assistance with cares. Full assistance with cares would be obviously transferring, bathing, you know, they get the meal preparation. It would be, you know, even up to hospice care. So you're talking about people who are bedridden and need those full cares. So I think that's where respite care may be an option if it's like the scenarios that we looked at and it's just a knee replacement, or, you know, possibly families are going on vacations and, you know, they're the main care providers, but they need a vacation, so they want to just make sure the mom or dad are taken care of. So, you know, we have those options available to them, and, you know, assisted living is here to help as much as everybody.
Yeah, so from my perspective, because we get people come in to plan, and the typical plan for long-term care is, well, we're going to move in with my daughter, you know, or, you know, my daughter-in-law lives just down the block and she'll come and she'll take care of us. And I think both you and Jeff have mentioned, and I know you've seen this, the struggle with both of those is that we're going to fundamentally change that relationship from parent-child to caregiver, caregivee. And I've watched, the trained caregivers are lovely, wonderful people. They know how to do this. But they can also be, all right, we need to do this and we're going to do this. Kids don't necessarily have that gift. And you guys can address this for me, but, you know, we get emotionally involved. We don't want to see mom, you know, in what we consider to be pain. We don't, you know, that rehabilitation stuff, that's hard stuff. And, you know, we don't want to push that a little bit. And so that really changes the nature of things. So talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I think one of the key points that you're making, and I can testify to this as my own life, My dad had Lewy body dementia, and I was actually working in skilled nursing at the time. And my sister and I said, okay, we're going to move him into our home because mom couldn't handle those hallucinations and delusions anymore. It was causing tension on their marriage. So, you know, we did it for 6 months. And I tell you what, we about died because, you know, becoming the caregiver, you lose that empathy when it's your own parent at some point, because there's, you know, that obviously we're both still working full time too. So, you know, taking shifts and having our kids help out and those kind of things. Had we been able to afford home care, may have been the option. We did end up putting my dad into an assisted living, and, you know, it was the best option for him. And I guess my sister and I's sanity as well. So, you know, to answer your question, Jeff, about that, the spin down situation, absolutely. I have residents who've been with me for 7 years, you know, or 9 years when we first opened up, and, you know, they deplete those funds. And so, yes, we do transition to Medicaid. And I think that's an important thing for people to really look at in looking at assisted living. Is there that transition, or are they going to have to make a move again? Because any move that you make on your family member is going to be difficult. You know, you go into independent living because that may be what's appropriate at the time, and they just want socialization with other people. But then there has to be that transition to assisted living because independent isn't going to help anymore. You know, and it may even get to the point that in some situations, the care is too extreme and they need nursing 24/7, that they may have to go to a skilled setting. So, you know, you have to look at all those aspects. Sorry?
I was gonna say, and we kids are totally out of our element with skilled nursing, trying to provide skilled care. Just
absolutely.
We can't do it.
You know, it's definitely challenging when you are, you know, living at home and you're trying to be the care provider, making sure that those family members don't get wounds and, you know, things that could happen if they're in a hospice type situation. You know, you had the hospice nursing coming in and those kind of things, but they're only coming so many hours a week, which is, you know, anywhere from every day for 1 hour, but that's not going to be enough to make sure that those residents are being, or those patients are being transferred appropriately or turned appropriately, that they have the right bed, you know. So hospice is definitely an intricate part, but they need to have the home care situation. And again, you know, this is something that each person is going to have to decide. What does their home look like? Is it going to be staying in the home with home care, or is their home going to become assisted living? Which I can tell you, I have lots of residents who come to me and, you know, they're dreading the fact that they're coming to assisted living because they've given up their home and all their things that they had. But yet within a matter of just a few days, they're like, wow, this was a really good decision, you know? And so we just have to get that conversation going with our parents as far as, you know, what do you want? What is this going to look like down the road? And, you know, let's make that decision. Getting home care in or getting assisted living, making that decision before there's an emergency in the home is the biggest thing, because once they've lost that ability to make that decision, it makes it much harder on everybody, because then there's a lot of animosity in the fact that, you know, they weren't able to make that decision. So the conversation has to start sooner rather than later.
So Jeff and Ashley and Tony, I think we can piggyback on what Kimberly is saying here. And from the standpoint of preparing for this age that I may or may not be entering soon, you know, kind of give us a list of the things we need to be thinking through. How do we get prepared? Finances, yeah. Emotionally, what do we need to be talking about? Health-wise, what do we need to be talking about? You guys give us some background on some things that would be good now. Kimberly said now is good to have that conversation. Give us some ideas on that.
Yeah, Mark. So I think Henry, if you guys are looking at some of the cases that we looked at from the materials that you guys provided, would be an awesome option to start home care now. Henry is, if you guys, oh, here he is. So he's a widow. His daughter lives across country, but he's still very independent. He wakes up every morning at 5 a.m. and he's out there with his calves. He loves his home. He has Devin, who is getting married in the next year, but he's been really helping him. I think for Henry, home care is a great option to start now, because while he does have some dementia that's starting to onset and they are, concerned about, this is something that we would be able to help him with. He has diabetes and he's had it for 30 years that he's been okay managing on his own. However, now with the dementia, they are worried about, him.
You're at a risk. You're at a risk, not
Yeah.
remembering.
So if we could come in and do that medication reminder, run some of those errands for him to pick up some of the feed that he's concerned about, since Devin is going to be getting married, this would be something that I think would be a good option for home care, just to fill in those areas where where his family is concerned about. He doesn't need 24-hour care right now. He's still very independent. And so if we can come in there and just relieve some of that, hardship that he might see. And if home care doesn't come in, chances are you'll see a decline a lot quicker than you would have if, we did step in early. And then that time may come where he is no longer safe in his home and he would transition to an assisted living. And even at that, his caregiver who has been with him for time, we see the transition happen a lot smoother when the caregiver goes with them, even if it's for the first week, just to help them get, situated and feel a little bit more comfortable. So I think Henry is a great example of where home care could come in.
Can I throw in a comment there?
Sure.
What makes Henry so good as a candidate kind of goes back to your question, Mark, of what are the preparations, what are the decisions, what are the triggers that you need to be watching for? And in this particular scenario, Henry is a fiercely independent person. So that's a good indicator right there. He's not terribly social. What he likes to socialize with is his cattle. And no matter how good the independent living facility is, they're probably not going to have a herd of cattle. And so
most don't. No,
most don't. It's a little known option.
Kimberly brings in a cow every other week or so. And some people, they can milk the cow.
So it's about asking or understanding or observing what is important to yourself or your loved one. Observing, for example, if they have a high social need, they're extroverted, they've always had a lot of friends, assisted living is going to be the way to go. And hopefully we'll get a chance to even talk a little bit about Gloria, also a scenario from your packet, because that's a good scenario for where that is going to be just right. What makes Henry probably a better candidate to stay home is a caregiver can help him continue to provide that quality of life that he loves, being able to be out on his ranch, but do so safely, where he's not going to have trips and falls or accidents out there in the middle of a field where nobody might even find him for days and days and days. He's got a little bit of dementia, and early onset dementia can oftentimes be better managed in the home scenario because they're around what is familiar to them. They know when, where, and who they are, and that keeps them based into their reality. That being said, dementia is a progressive illness. And so eventually there's going to become a time where additional memory care is going to be required. That will result in either a very intensive and therefore expensive home care experience, or can be really well managed in a memory care unit. In this particular scenario, though, if we're looking at the rewind, going back into the getting to know the situation ahead of time, we would identify their level of independence, their level of social need, and what gives them joy. And how can we best facilitate the joy that causes them to love life? If that's at a facility, great. And if that is staying home, great. In Henry's case, like Ashley was saying, probably a really good scenario for home care. And so asking some of those social emotional questions or making those social emotional observations can really help you to plan. Knowing my dad, for example, he's a fiercely independent guy. He has no social need. He is a very, very, very introverted guy. I mean, he could go forever not talking to anybody. That's my dad. My mother, however, has incredible social needs. And so let's say that in my particular situation, if dad were to outlive mom, I'll probably keep him home. But if mom were to outlive dad, she might be better or happier in a facility. Just my observations can help me to plan around what their social emotional needs are going to be. And that's, of course, in addition to the financial questions that are always there of how we can stay healthy and vibrant in our latter years. Anything else to add on this particular scenario?
No,
Yeah,
I
the
have
only-
one other thought
sorry.
though, if I can. Sorry, Kimberly. I just
No,
have
you're
one
okay.
other thought. Having watched family members going through this process, there was an adjustment to having somebody coming into the home,
Mhm.
and then an adjustment for having people come into the apartment. So to me, that's another thing that we could be preparing for. And in my mom's situation, she had a gal come in and do some light housework. And that turned out to be genius for her anyway, because then she got used to having somebody come in. I know people are fiercely independent and they don't need any help, but you know what? They're gonna. And to have just some sort of an introduction, it seems to me, is another thing to be preparing for. Can we have somebody come into the house? Now, my mom and my wife are the kind of people that will clean the house before the housekeeper comes in and, does whatever else they're gonna do. But even still, getting somebody in is not comfortable for everybody. Sorry, Kimberly, that was my 2 bits there.
And that's great. I think the only other thing that I would suggest is in Henry's situation, Devin and Rebecca are concerned that, and they've noticed that he has memory deficits. Well, we need to get him to a doctor. We need to see where he's at with his memory.
Yeah.
Does he have a diagnosis of dementia? Because that's all going to play a role in his future needs, obviously. The other part about that is if he is having forgetfulness, how well is he managing his diabetes? Because I can tell you, you go without insulin or you have too much insulin, and that's going to cause confusion, which can make it look as though there's definitely, signs of dementia. So I think that's one of the first things they have to look at. Even a urinary tract infection in elderly can cause all of those concerns. So, I think that's the only thing I would add to that is get a diagnosis, because if he does have a diagnosis of dementia, you got to do something about the driving because he's not safe, and my dad ended up in a couple different accidents before we really realized that there was some concerns. And when you hit a snow plow, that's a pretty big concern.
That is. So here's the question.
Anyway, that's just.
So here's the question. Was he riding a horse into Caldwell because they
No.
took his driver's license away? And then did he ride his riding lawnmower into Caldwell because they told him he couldn't ride his horse?
Right.
That's a story from a couple of years ago. Well, listen, we're
Yeah.
running out of time. We're not going to have a lot of time here for Gloria, and I apologize to Gloria. And Jeff, I think you said some things that are really interesting. She's a high social person, the butterfly. I can see her maybe being concerned for 1 or 2 meals at the assisted living. And then she go, I'm gonna like it here, because she's just met all these friends that they don't even know they're friends yet. But
Yeah.
I can see that. But I have one other question. This one is a difficult one. Henry's daughter in the scenario has a tremendous opportunity out in New Jersey.
Mhm.
So Kimberly, when he gets there, do we just ship him out to New Jersey and then we're there and we're good and we just make it happen?
No, I actually have a lot of family members who live out of state that have their loved ones here because this is where they have ties, even though the children have left the area. And there's a lot of contact that's made with those families so that they feel very aware of what's going on. So no, I don't think that he has to be shipped out. And, but I guess that's going to be up to them to decide what they want to do.
Well, yeah, I can see that, but you could see maybe a little bit of pressure on Henry to, yeah, Dad, we need you out here close by. And I can appreciate that. I'm good with the fact that they would like to have him close. I can understand that. But we're still a fairly rural area in the Treasure Valley. And many times they'll come into your community and guess what? They'll see a classmate from high school. My mom tells me every week about somebody that she runs into that she went to high school with, or that Dad and Mom knew. It's just amazing. And I don't know, that would make me nervous to pry them away from that.
Exactly.
Well, we're running out of time. I just want to say one more thing, Jeff. The girls that we were talking about with Kimberly are twins. Wednesday, I had 4 sisters with birthdays. And it was 2 sets of twins. Mom had 2 sets of twins. And so I can absolutely attest to the fact that they're so completely different. The older set, you can look at them and they're identical, and you listen to them and talk to them and it's kind of funny, but whoa, completely different. And so again, I think that's a big takeaway from this, is that every situation is different, even though there's some common ground there, but each situation is so different. And we're not doing our parents or our loved ones any service if we're sitting there not talking to Kimberly or talking to Tony and saying, here's the situation and this is what's going on, and you need to know that this is important. My one sister sings in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Well, guess what Mom has to do at 9:30 every Sunday? She needs to see her daughter up there in the Tabernacle Choir. Well, that's huge to her. And there's lots of things like that. So Tony, how do we get hold of you so we can get started in this process?
Sure. So the easiest way to get a hold of us is to just give us a call, really. We're located here in the Valley. Phone number is 208-376-5515. And we're here to help. Like Ashley mentioned at the very beginning, part of my role is to go out and meet with families and make sure that they understand what we provide and that we can understand what they're looking for too. So we do that assessment and just find out what their goals are. We go through the finances and the family dynamics. And I was going to talk a little bit about Gloria. I actually wrote family dynamics and I highlighted it on that page because that's the gentleman who set himself up for failure there, bringing his mom into the home like that. So we talk about things like that. So just give us a call. We'll be glad to come out and
does it cost them any money? Cost them any money to have you come and visit with them?
Not at all. No.
What if they're not ready for you right now?
Well, then we'll talk to them again later, or maybe we suggest, like in Gloria's case, where maybe they could go talk to Kimberly, or maybe an independent living facility where they have the option to have continuing care and stay on the same campus throughout their lifetime. It'll just depend upon the individual and how we want to move forward with them. Does
the family have to sign up for at least 20 hours a week of care?
No, not at all. We'll do a 2-hour minimum. So
okay. So, and the reason I say this is because if Dad's providing the care or Mom, and they just need to get away for an afternoon of shopping, or to get their nails done, or to go to the club with the other ladies, or to go golfing, we could do that. And that would be huge.
Absolutely. And we do that with a lot of people. And that's kind of how they accustomed to us coming into the home, like you mentioned about your
Yes.
mom. We do that a lot of times. So it just helps them get comfortable with us and learn about us and how we do our work every day.
Kimberly, how do we get hold of you?
So I am at the Edgewood Springcreek Ustick location, and the phone number here is 208-287-2064. And I might also mention, one of the things that I neglected to mention is we do independent living all the way up through memory care. So we have 3 buildings that specialize in memory care. And then we have 8 locations throughout this Treasure Valley, which is huge because it's typically right near where a family member lives for the most part. So happy to be of assistance in any of those areas. And you can call me for any of those locations, and I'm happy to steer you in the right direction and get you set up with who you need to talk to.
And again, because every situation is different, they can come and talk to you.
Absolutely.
They can kind of get their ducks lined up or started in that process.
Mhm.
If they're working with Tony and we see that we're kind of headed in that direction, it'd be great to have that conversation before. We absolutely need to be there.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate you being on with us. Again, I think we're all on the same page. Get moving a little bit, folks. Talk about this. Talk to your people. If mom's not, cooperating yet, then you go talk and find out what's going on. And we got people. We got lots of resources. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to take a break for about 10 minutes. I know Carly's over there going, not 10, it's 6 minutes. Now we're going to take about 10 minutes, and then people can go refill their coffee. And then if they've been drinking coffee, they can go to the bathroom, and we'll be back. And we're going to be talking to Jaylene Wells. Did I say that right? Jaylene. Thank you, Ashley. And Paul Fredericks. We're going to talk a little bit about hospice and some memory care. Another set of issues, another set of concerns, some things to talk about. Again, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.